What's up, everybody? Garrett back here. And what we're going to talk about today is the brand new Maniac 2, or the last horror film, the new 4K from Severin Films. And I have two people with me, and we're going to talk about this thing together. The Dead Pit Boys are here.
You remember Bobby the Brain Heenan said fair to flare back in the day? Got to be fair to flare.
Yep.
We're going to be fair to David today on the show, because a lot of people think that we're anti-Severin, anti-David Gregory.
Yay!
No, that's just not true, because people may be surprised about what we're going to say about this movie.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it because it's been a real long time since I've watched this. I actually have it right here. I had this, and I'm going to tell you, the quality is so bad on this that I never felt like I gave this a good shot. Like I watched it, and then I can remember like kind of being half in, half out. And I'm like, oh, it's another movie with Spinell and da-da-da. But it didn't ever feel like anything special. So that was this release. But the new release looked fantastic. It almost like made like that. It made it seem like I've never watched this movie in my life. And my opinion on this has totally changed. And I definitely want to get into it. But I have my box here still because there was like a bunch of goodies that came with this. Did you guys get all those goodies besides the plush? The plush is not here, and we're going to do our own review on that. But there was some shit that came in this box. Do you guys have that stuff with you?
I've started my pin collection.
Yep. I haven't even like really looked at it yet. I was waiting for us to do this. It's so sick.
They're very large pins.
Yeah, it's not bad actually. If you're going to collect a pin, yeah.
Look at that, dude. He's got a little cigarette there.
You got the Carolyn Monroe pin as well.
That's sick. Look at that. Any pin collectors out there, and they're looking for this Spinell pin? I'm
start a new
cool
collection.
To sell this pin. You got the Severin sticker, of course.
The funny thing with me is I didn't even remember them being pin. I just thought it was the doll or whatever.
I don't remember the pins either, to be honest. I really don't. But they also were nice enough to give us a coupon, a little card. Did you get a $10 off card in there because of the issue with the plush doll or whatever? So
I'm going to use that for the Opera 4K. I've already
That's
decided.
what I was thinking too. Yeah,
because that damn thing's going to be at least $70.
So once we use that, it'll probably be about $65 after $10 off.
Yeah, but
now I forget, how much was this total for this bundle? Do you remember offhand?
I think it was
find out real quick.
I think it was like $90, 88, $90, something like that. But we can let Uncle Bill look. But yeah, I mean, anything that you're getting from Severin is going to be up there. It's going to be higher than any other studio most of the time, especially if there's some goodies along with it. And this was a limited edition slipcase for, they've done a lot of these, but this is probably the nicest one as far as the cardboard goes.
It was actually retail priced when we got it at $89, but I'm sure it was more than that with all the taxes.
And that was with the plush and everything?
That's with the plush and everything.
That's not really that bad.
No.
You think about everything. And I actually think that, in my opinion, I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I almost feel that this edition, the way it was done, was almost kind of like, yeah, we messed up last time with Four Flies. Because when you look at the sizing of this thing on the site, it basically was like kind of like this, and it looked just like the Four Flies did. I don't know what they called this thing. Like, was this a slip case, a slip box? I don't know what they called it. But I know that was their big issue with the Four Flies. It said slip case or whatever, and they were like, no, slip case and slip cover the same thing. Well, what did they call this? Because I didn't even realize this was going to be this big side loader that we got here, which almost kind of mimics what Arrow does.
With the book and everything.
I'll tell you,
I had no idea.
That packaging is the exact same packaging as the Psychic, too. It's the same size. It has a booklet in it that's almost the same. Like, it's exactly the same. So whatever they're doing now, they must have taken a page out of like Arrow or somebody and just been like, this is how we're releasing these limited editions now.
Well, I'm going to put them over a little bit. This is a rarity because this is unlike any other studio, this particular package. Now, it's similar to Arrow, but it's not as thick as Arrow, not a hard box or anything. Sure. But for a while there, they were going with the Vinegar Syndrome covers, which I think, those look cool and everything, but that's Vinegar Syndrome shit. So this is more along the lines of something original for them. and I think they need to continue with this.
Hmm.
And I think that originally Four Flies on Gray Velvet was going to be in these cases.
I do too.
totally
I think that
agree.
was the. I think that's what it was going to be. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
because
probably
They
the
screwed
plan
up
is-
somehow. I don't know how.
Or it was either the plan all along and it screwed up, or they realized that they messed up and then went back and like did them like this because of what everybody was saying. Because it's just, and what I like about it too is, like you said, it's not as thick as Arrow, but it's embossed too. Like, and the one thing Severin does that I will give them credit for that no one else has ever done is these like secret slip covers where they just kind of like make up titles and like throw it on there. Like, I love that, and I try to collect all the ones they do like that because, you know, either I'm like I said, I'm huge into mashups or whatever, but something just totally unique. I think this was a great idea. The artwork is killer on this.
Yep.
Great looking image. I'd actually rather have a Maniac 2 next to my Maniac on the shelf just for aesthetic purposes than have something that just is the last horror film. So the whole package to me was like on point, and I think to me it's probably my favorite Severin release visually too.
If you did it like that,
like,
that goes right together, man.
I'm gonna tell you right now. There's two movies that have come out in 2023 that I think are my contenders for like the best packaging, and this is one of them. Like, this is like
Love to Kill,
because I mean, that's an amazing cover, and it's amazing packaging, and it's the fact that it's embossed and everything.
Was last horror film ever in any country called Maniac 2 though? I don't think it was.
I don't know.
I don't believe so. No.
But I mean, it kind of fits. I mean, it's kind of believable as just a separate story.
I'll tell you, the other one though is Vinegar Syndrome's Blade in the Dark. I think that's outstanding too, the way they did that. So it's hard to say, but like I was really surprised by how good this looked, considering Severin's, you know, kind of background. I was also really surprised that it wasn't fucking falling apart. Like there was no seams or anything coming out of it. Like,
no, this was really well done.
It's not the Cheerios slipcover box,
right? Yeah, like, but more than that, though, I was amazed at how great the movie looked. Like, I've seen a lot of 4Ks in here, and a lot of like stuff from Kino, like here recently, I haven't been impressed with, but I was really impressed with how well they cleaned this movie up. Like, it's insanely detailed for.
If I'm not mistaken, we did review this movie back. I think, was it a Trauma DVD that came out?
It was a Trauma DVD.
It was, yeah.
Okay. So we had seen it before, but it'd been many years. And to be honest with you, the initial viewing of it back in the day, I wasn't really too. I mean, it was okay, right? But this new transfer, man, and I've noticed it a few times over the years with some of these movies that you think, it was all right, and you go back and rewatch it with that new clean transfer. This one's in 4K, and you can clearly tell it's, you know, it's an outstanding transfer on it. Severin, man, and this is the truth. I'm not kissing anybody's ass, but Severin, their stuff 9 times out of 10 looks phenomenal. It's as good as any other, you know, of the boutique labels, probably better. You know, Blue Underground, Vinegar Syndrome, Severin. You can pretty much Synapse guarantee all their stuff's going to be fantastic.
I will say this though too: the way that I think this film benefits the most from the way that it's cleaned up is the gore, because you can really hardly even see what's going on.
Very dark on that DVD. It's very dark.
But in this, it's actually pretty good. Like for that time period and everything, like the gore scenes in it were really good.
Yeah, it was so well cleaned up. The audio sounded fantastic because I even put the DVD in just before we did this, so I'd have a good comparison. It was muffled on that. Everything was super dark, and it was like very grainy. Even like the title cards that were popping up were like very, very like faded almost. Like it was a bad transfer on this. And I'm gonna tell you, and I don't know if anybody watching this or you guys agree with me. I actually liked this better than Maniac now. This movie, I think, in my opinion, because I watched Maniac again afterwards, and I'm like, man, I like this better because it's not as gritty and raw, but the music in this is freaking awesome. The soundtrack is so good in this movie that I never even knew that it was that good. I just loved the aesthetic of it. It had more like neons. I feel like it was a very similar character that Spinell played, really.
It was
But
basically the same.
I liked it better than Maniac. I think as a whole, I just think it was a better overall movie. I think. In my
Well, you want to talk about the movie real quick here? Because people, Last Horror Film is the original name for it.
Yes.
And the artwork, I think that this artwork is out of print, that this was only for that initial,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the initial sale. So this thing's probably going to skyrocket as well. But still, you can get the standard Blu-ray if I can get it out here.
By the way, just to comment real quick on what you were saying, Garrett, while he's doing this, I had the same thought. Like after I watched the film, I was like, I think it's they're two completely different types of films for a couple of like different reasons. Like number one being like how this movie ends is completely different. Like,
yeah,
the original Maniac gives you no relief, no like comic, relief or anything like that. No kind of sense of that, that anybody's in on a joke or anything about it.
Well, this one doesn't either until the very, very end of the movie.
That's what I mean, though. At the end, the payoff is that you find, well, I mean, we have to talk about that at some point anyway, but and in Maniac, it's just all like dead serious. It's much grittier, darker, more like an exploitation film. Like it's just a completely different style of film. So in comparing them, like I think that this is an easier watch. I'll put it that way. Like it's a more kind of enjoyable film to watch for sure.
But anyway, I finally got the disc pulled out here. This is the version that you can get now. It's available on the site, which has just the regular artwork, but it's the same contents other than that book that's included, which I haven't really looked at the book at all.
I kind of skimmed through it like earlier today, and it's basically just like a whole thing about how not to direct a horror film. Like it talks about like what they did at Cans.
Cans.
And there's a lot of like still photography and stuff in it. There's also an interview in the main back too with the director that goes on for a pretty good amount of time too. David
Do you
Winters.
think that people that are watching this for like the first time, like that are getting this, are kind of like, what the hell? When the girl's like, "Oh, you're going to be starring in Scream," they're like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are going to be like, "What the hell, Scream?"
But getting into the movie real quick here, and we'll get back to the release. Joe Spinell. Now, this is I think I had seen this is the only the second movie that he was actually the star of, which is interesting, and they're both very similar. He's a New York City cabbie who has dreams of becoming a horror filmmaker, and famous and everything. He's infatuated with Jana Bates, played by Carolyn Monroe, who is kind of like a horror scream queen. And he's got a shrine up in his room, photos and everything. So he decides to travel to the Cannes Film Festival, which is where this movie was shot primarily, a lot of the locations and stuff.
Yeah.
To confront her, try to get her to be in this movie that he wants to make. And he's got issues. Vinny is his name, I think. Vinny Duran. And a lot of this stuff that is going on in his head, you're thinking, oh, he's, and I don't want to give it away or anything. But yeah, there's some crazy shit that goes on in this movie. One of the more interesting aspects of this, and I was reading about this because I didn't realize that this was shot illegally at the 1981 Cannes Film Festival. They had no permits to shoot anything at that festival, and they shot most of the movie around that festival, and that was part of the plot and everything. Which I
knew it was kind of weird when you saw like actual footage, like Chris Christopherson like coming in and like all these different like actors like coming down the for the photo stuff, and I was like, that I mean, you can't.
You don't think they agreed to be extras in this movie?
No, I somehow seriously doubt that. Yeah, I knew there had to be a weird backstory to that too. And there's all kinds of, like you were saying too, like they take they're filming like all the posters that are around on the different like marquees and things too. Possession was one of them. I was like, hey God, it's Sam Neill
Cannibal
movie.
Holocaust.
I was gonna
Cannibal
say Cannibal
Holocaust. Yeah.
Holocaust. Yeah.
Yeah, that alone was very interesting to me because this is in 4K and everything. It's like almost going back in time. But yeah, I mean, Spinell's character, Vinny, is pretty much a loser. Everybody makes fun of him and everything. And he has fantasies of being this successful filmmaker, and he's got all the girls and stuff like that. In reality, he's just this loser cab driver from New York City. But
I mean, when you say
Spinell,
he has fantasy, I mean, there's actual like. That's one thing that's funny about this film too. He has actual like sequences that are filmed of his fantasies in particular, like him getting like an Oscar and like
yeah,
him fucking making out with all these women. And then there's one really cool one too, where like all the people that are dead are like there and they're all like laughing and shit.
yeah.
It's very like much like Maniac in that
Yeah.
sense, that sequence. Yeah.
And Joe Spinell's real life mother plays his mom in this too. And you can, like Uncle Bill and I were talking about this, like you can kind of, something's wrong here because she's not really an actor, and you can tell.
I could tell immediately that
Like
had to be her. Yeah.
It's almost like Spinell took the camera to her house to film most of this stuff, just in her kitchen or whatever on the phone.
Yeah.
It's like, say that, Ma. No.
Yeah.
But,
No, it was man, it was a really relieving watch. I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did when I got it, just because again, one of the main reasons I got it was not only for, I'm a sucker for this kind of like fake, titling, packaging, the plush doll. But at the same time, I knew that this was such a horrible transfer. And like you said, there has been times in the past where when I got something on Blu-ray or 4K and it's all cleaned up, I have a different, appreciation for the movie. And I always bring up Tourist Trap because that was a big one for me. I didn't think anything of that movie for years because the DVD I had was so terrible that as soon as I got it on Blu-ray, I was like, wow, this movie was really good. And, that's why I'm really apt to give more things like this a chance based on what it looks like on the DVD. Because it could have been something I just threw in there, watched like half of it, said, yeah, shitty, and then just like got rid of it. But no, very, very surprised.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had fun with this one. Spinell's one of those guys he's interesting to watch in anything that he's in. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame because most of the stuff that he's in, he's got really, really brief, almost back, extra role or something, I'll see him occasionally in, like, I think he was in Vigilante. I think he's briefly in that as like a crooked lawyer or whatever. And it's like he plays the same like dirty, crazy character almost in every movie that he's in.
The thing about Spinell that always gets me too is, I mean, he was a character actor, but like he was briefly in like some of the most famous movies of all time,
like Rocky,
like, The Godfather, Rocky. I think he was in several of the Godfather movies and Rocky, but there was something else too, like Taxi Driver. I think he was in Taxi Driver. It's like, what the fuck? Like what?
Like, yeah, like how did he get into those? Like, was he just like an extra in New York?
He's friends with like Stallone. He was close friends with Stallone. I think he was close friends with Steven Spielberg too, if I'm not mistaken.
It is interesting though, like how he becomes close friends with those people. Yeah. Like in the sense of like he doesn't really seem like someone I don't know. It is a very interesting story for him. I'd love to, know more about it, but like where did he come from? How did he get so close to some of these people, But, yeah, he did it right for himself.
But he to me is like, I mean, the star of the whole thing in terms of like every time he's on screen, like you can't really take your eyes off of him because he's like, he plays that role so perfectly, man. Like the kind of like just barely keeping stuff together kind of role of like where he's desperately trying to convince people that, that he's going to be a director, but he's also like
his mom on the phone and stuff.
Yeah.
Like how good it is going. Yeah.
He's like, please believe me this time, and starts crying. Like it's like he's amazing.
He's going to do it, Ma.
Yeah.
And on this release here though from Severin, what did you guys think? Did you let the menu screen play out very long? Because That was a very memorable menu screen that they.
I didn't actually. I don't know what happened to the
I don't
menus.
remember.
It's the
what it would be.
striptease scene in the movie.
Dude, this may get one of the awards for the best opening scenes ever, too, by the way. I was like, Jesus.
Lots of nudity in this one.
Yeah.
And gore too. There's a good amount of gore too if you're down for that. I had fun with it. It's a 2-disc set. Disc 2 is a Blu-ray that has a few documentaries on it and interviews.
I watched a couple of those, by the way. And one of them, I'm gonna be honest with you, as you can see, like my Blu-ray is not in here because I was watching the special features. The one that has like a father figure, the Sal Sercia thing.
Yeah.
That one was kind of odd to me. I don't know why. Like the guy was a musician, but he's not a very good musician that kind of Joe Spinell befriended. And it's just him talking about like his experiences with him. And that it was just very, I don't know, very cringe-ish kind of to me because he plays a lot of his music and stuff in it. I probably wouldn't have gone down that route. And then the other one was there's a producer's cut that I started to watch before we got on here, just to see if I could like notice anything like that's.
How's the quality of the producer's cut? All right,
it's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's not as good as the 4K or anything.
Sure, but it's probably it's not as
it's watchable.
Not
it's not as bad as it's not anywhere near like the DVD. I didn't notice anything, but I only watched about 20 minutes of it before we started doing this. And then there's a location scouting thing. I never watch that shit. I just don't care. But yeah, I mean,
well, you know what's interesting now that I'm looking at these is that there's other features on this DVD that I don't see on here unless there's more that they're not showing on the back of this. Because it says here that there's a feature on this DVD that's called My Best Maniac, an afternoon with Joe Spinell's best friend, Luke Walter. I don't see that on here. Oh, actually, no, I see the audio commentary with Luke Walter. I don't see that. Yeah. Then it also has the short Mr. Robbie, a.k.a. Maniac 2, a rarely seen short film.
That's on something else, too, though.
Starring Joe Spinell. Is that on the Maniac one, you think?
I think so. It might be. I think it was on one of the Maniac releases. Yeah.
Because I remember having that on something.
And that was I don't know what that was, but yeah, they were planning a real Maniac 2. Wasn't it shortly before he passed away? I think it was in the late 80s.
He passed away in 89, so I think they did that was like 87 or 88 that they did that Mr. Robbie shit.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't talk about this movie, without talking about the ending of this movie, because I'm not going to give away the ending of the movie or anything, but I'm talking about the main ending of the movie. So it ends, and I was like, what in the hell? It ends with him and his mom, his real mom, like watching a movie, like watching the credits of the movie or whatever that they just, did. And then he's just like, talking to her, and she's like, "Hey, you got a joint?" He's like, "Yeah," and he like hits it and gives it to her, and that's how the movie ends. I'm like, it may be the greatest or worst ending of it all time, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, like he's talking about the movie they just watched or whatever, and this little old lady, which little old, like looked like she was 80, 85 years old or something like that. Hey, Vinny. He's like, what?
Yeah.
Give me a joint.
It's so random.
Yeah.
They're like, how do we end this? Oh, let's do it this way.
I mean, it would have been perfectly fine if they just ended it the way they did, but they just tacked that on.
It almost seemed like it was like an extra scene or something like that. It didn't even kind of really fit like the whole,
So odd.
I'm wondering what kind of a release this got back. 1982 is when this came out. So I'm guessing not a very big theatrical release.
I kind of feel like this is actually like there's tons of movies that say this, but I actually feel like that this is kind of an underrated, like underground movie. Like not a lot of people really know or ever talk about this movie, but it's actually really good. Like
I agree.
It's really well acted, really well shot. It's almost shot like a documentary style in a way with the way they go through
Mhm.
cans and
I'd
everything.
say
correct?
that's kind of how they did. Like that's how they got away with it. Really, they were probably thinking they were for some news crew that was,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was filming the.
but it works, with
Yeah.
what they're doing in the movie too. Great
Mhm.
gore effects. I thought that was had some great scenes if you're into that kind of thing. And overall, like I think that Joe Spinell carries the whole thing pretty well.
Yeah, and
And
like I said, the music is really good in it too.
Yeah,
I really, really liked some of those like songs that hit like during a lot of the scenes. It was really, really good.
and Severin, as far as this release goes, they've redeemed themselves a little bit. I think
Yeah.
they hit the ball out of the park with this release. Now, unfortunately, you can't get it online anymore. I'm sure they'll probably be having these at like conventions and stuff. Knowing
True.
them, so if you see them at a convention, you may be able to get this version, which is it's a damn good looking edition.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the movie itself, if you want to check it out, definitely get it. But I think that this, compared to what you get as far as packaging, like it blows away just this standard, image that they have here. Is it reversible? I mean, you're not going to get that
I
one,
don't
but
think
no, there's
so.
no
No.
there's no reverse art. But yeah, awesome release. I think, like I said, it's probably my favorite Severin release that we've gotten, at least for as far as I can remember.
And maybe, like Uncle Bill said, the psychic releases the same sort of packaging, right?
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see because I suspect that that's going to look amazing too. I haven't watched that yet, but like I just have a feeling because there's not been a really great release of that movie either. So I
Well, I'm
think that'll
wondering
probably be the
if
same thing.
their 4Ks, if that's going to be the standard look for the Severin 4Ks now.
I would
I
hope
think they might
like
as
that
well. They've got to do
yeah,
something.
to differentiate themselves away from Vinegar Syndrome. They've got to like kick the game up a little bit. Yeah. But the
Yeah,
stuff
and I
they've
and
got
I do
coming out,
think that you guys gave them a little, or not you guys, but I do think that they felt a little bit of push to move it to the next level because of the Four Flies situation.
yeah, they tried to deflect all that, but I think that got enough like they got enough backlash about that they kind of probably had to pay attention. Yeah.
I can remember
Sure.
somebody was telling me that one of the Severin guys in an interview admitted like that something happened with the artwork or something on that Four Flies, but then they kind of backpedaled a little bit. I would almost guarantee that they originally wanted to do Four Flies in this sort of packaging.
I agree.
That would have been awesome if they did. Yeah.
And the price that we were paying for it, it should have been in that kind of packaging with the book and everything like that. But they did it right on Maniac 2, the last horror film. So I'll give them credit.
I'll ask you both this question though. Okay. We bought this for $55. Is it worth $55?
With this packaging and stuff,
Mhm.
I think for me, are you saying that you're saying without the bundle, it's 55 standalone?
Yeah, it's 55 standalone. Yep.
That is steep, in my opinion, but I will say the one thing that I can give this credit for is that it made me love a movie that I didn't even think twice about before I bought this, right? Like I
give
really
you
like
that,
this
yeah.
movie and I could see myself watching this multiple times, and I would have never given the last horror film the time of day ever if this wasn't released this way. So as much as I say yes, it's steep, at the same time I'd at least say I'm glad I bought it no matter what the price point was, because now I really it's a favorite of mine that I have. So
It's expensive, but if you look at Severin is not a large company in comparison to like Arrow and Shout Factory and even Vinegar Syndrome. They're on a low, probably half the size of Vinegar Syndrome, if that. So remastering these movies and going through and frame by frame cleaning them up and everything, and sometimes they even have to carry the scanner to up a flight of stairs in France.
He loves to bring it up every time.
And that that's some hard physical labor they have to pay for.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what they do, I appreciate what they do. And the price point, I mean, it is expensive. It's more than most companies charge. But at least with this, I mean, you get a quality package and the transfer is outstanding. It's the best the movie probably ever looked. I'm sure when it opened in, one or two theaters in New York and LA back in the day, it probably didn't look as good as this does. I would recommend it. I would say if you can catch it at a convention for $50, $55, especially if you're a Spinell fan, you'll definitely.
And especially now because it's technically out of print. So if you can find that at retail, I mean, you might as well just get it just for that purpose only. That it's not even in print anymore. So the only way to probably maybe get this is if there is a little bit of backstock at a convention, which they're known to have. So I would definitely recommend
They'll
picking
blur
it
it
up
out
for sure.
later.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend it. Now, again, do we know if was there any issue with them doing this title due to like Blue Underground or anything like that having Maniac as the rights? Like, did they kind of work together on that? Because can they just do the logo and stuff?
Yeah,
like,
I'll tell you what. Like, I was thinking about that too, and I went back and there's an interview on their podcast from like right around the time they released this with Bill Lustig. And basically, he just gave them permission to do. Well, this is what they said. So who the fuck knows? He just gave them permission to do like a one-time run of this particular cover after, like, supposedly after this sold out with this cover art, it'll never be released with that again. So I don't know how they figure that out, like, financially or anything, but like, I guess after this, like, they don't have the rights to use any of the Maniac stuff again.
Yeah, and for people nowadays that are like slipcover collectors and all that stuff, this is going to be a rarity. And just like a lot of theirs are, I have a lot of those, but I'm still chasing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre mock cover. And
me too.
To find that on eBay sometimes, I mean, you already know if it pops up, you're going to be spending probably $70 to $100 easy on that thing for a movie that's not really that. Was it Night Killer?
Yeah, I mean, Night Killer's.
Like, I mean, it's not
movie.
worth as much as you're going to pay for it, but
I don't know how they ever got Texas Chainsaw Massacre out of Night Killer.
I don't know either, man. That was kind of ingenious to name it that, because at least like it draws some interest.
It's fun and it's kind of a collectible thing, like you were saying. So I have no problem with him doing that. I think that the Cruel Jaws thing was pretty stupid. Universal, you don't mess with Universal. And
I mean, I think they got to be a little bit more picky, but I do like when they do it because it's just so different. And I think each company kind of has like something that they do that kind of sets them apart. And I think that that's one little thing that Severin did or does that no other company has done, so I like that they have their own like little side gimmick that they do every once in a while. And, be creative with it. But I think it's kind of neat. And it gives a little bit more of like a oomph to buy something because it's coming with like this one time only, cover art or whatever. So I like it. I hope they do more, but they just got to be a little bit more smart with, they can't do like, I mean, with that last one I have, they could have easily had a mock ET one, right? Like
that's what I thought they would do.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically called ET2. It's called extraterrestrial whatever, but how easy would that have been to just make a fake ET slip? Very easy, but I think they knew like
any big crazy big franchise that's owned by a major studio, I don't see them doing anything else. Like Terminator 2, I don't know how they didn't get in trouble for that.
Evil Dead 5.
I think they were so far under the radar at that point. Yeah, I think Severin was so far under the radar back then that nobody noticed. But like as they started kind of getting a little bit more like, I think all the boutique labels are probably under a watchful eye right now because they are making waves, and I think that's where things kind of hit the fan. But yeah, like I got the ET one and I'm like, this was almost like a slam dunk if they would have did an ET cover, but they had to have purposely like, we can't because we'll be screwed if we do. But I mean, I hope they do a little bit more of
I'm going to be honest. Like I may buy that damn Nightmare one now, just considering like, I don't even like that movie, but considering the packaging, it's going to be amazing. But the real thing that's going to be insane is when they release Opera though, because I'm sure that it will be like this, if not even like bigger than this
Well, Cemetery Man's another one that they're going to do.
Mm.
That's true.
That's a
I
pretty
don't
big
even
one for
like
them.
Cemetery Man that much, though, man. I just can't.
But I mean, that's a big get because that
Yeah.
one hasn't been re-released here in the US in probably 15, 16 years.
Was it Anchor Bay that did it?
Yeah.
Blue Under
Yeah.
Bay.
2006, I think,
Anchor
was
Bay.
when the Anchor Bay one came out. Maybe 2007.
Now, I'm not on their site. I don't know if you can pull it or whatever, but I'm curious because I don't remember, like we said, I don't remember showing that this was going to be this kind of, like, when I got the packaging, I was actually kind of shocked that this is what we got because I wasn't expecting this side loader, a little bit more of a thicker. I don't know if did they show anything like this, or like did they showed all that stuff? So
I think
you
they
had an
did.
idea
I
that
think
this was how it was
so.
coming.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with like Bad Biology. It's like a digibook. I had no idea that was how that was going to be housed. Now, was that displayed that way on the site or not?
I'm
Because
looking.
I don't
I'm
know
looking
why
at the
I
site.
had no idea.
I'm actually looking at it right now, Garrett. Honestly, on my phone. No, it just looks like it does. The Bad Biology one just looks like a regular kind of like slipcase Blu-ray.
See, don't you think that's a little bit odd? Like, a part of me wants that because it's so unique and different that they're doing like a digibook for, like, I thought Bad Biology was okay. I didn't think it was god awful. I didn't think it was great. I mean, again, it's been a long. The last time I saw it was when I got the DVD. I think like the day it came out. But
it's awful. Like I watched it not too long ago, man, and I just I couldn't get through it. That's just the only reason I didn't buy that.
You didn't like you don't think Frank had it at that point? Is that what you're saying?
No, and I love Hidden Water too. Like I've got I just couldn't do it. It's just not a good movie at all. But I don't give a fuck if they do it in 8K with like a media steelbook.
Some of this stuff too doesn't, like Bad Biology doesn't need a 4K. I mean, come on. Like,
I mean, in my head, I'm like, oh, Bad Biology is new. Why does it have a 4K? It's probably not that new. I mean, it's got to be. When did it come out? Maybe 2010, maybe. But in my head, I'm still thinking that as like a newer title. You know.
The funny thing is too is like a lot of these movies post 2005, 2006. There's no way to remaster a digital movie. If it was shot digitally, it's the same transfer. There's nothing else you can do for it. And I think that may be what a couple like House of 1,000 Corpses. I think that one may have been shot digitally, and that may be why you've never seen an updated transfer, and that may be why that movie looks so damn good. So it'll be interesting to see like some of these independent movies from like 2007, 2008. What are they going to do with those? Some of those can't be put on 4K.
Now, is it just because of the upgrade itself? Like, it just can't happen, or can they do it and then just slap on 4K and then just say,
well, they
go.
could, yeah. If it was shot like, I think some of the early digital cameras were 2K cameras, like so. Yeah, I don't know a lot about the technicality of it, but we were talking to somebody about it, about one movie that was like, well, you'll never see a 4K of it because it wasn't shot in 4K.
Now, can they? But like I said, I've also heard too that there's companies that'll slap 4K on it and it really not be 4K. Yeah. But to re-release it and to make it feel like something different, they'll just say, "Oh yeah, it's 4K," and maybe they like changed up some of the colors or something like that on it. But
what's like, I think it was Don May we were talking to, Uncle Bill. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah,
but he was talking about like they did 4Ks of those Star Wars prequels. So the masters of those are 2K. He said those were 2K masters whenever they, finished them and edited them and everything. So you've got a 4K of the 2K transfer on those prequels, those Star Wars prequels. So I'm sure that happens a lot.
So it's really not true 4K, basically, is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what he was saying, yeah.
I feel like that happens a lot more than we probably realize too.
Probably.
I feel like a lot of these companies do something similar to that, like with these releases. Because I know he said that there was a particular company, and I don't want to say who I think it is, but I think I knew who it was from just by the way he was talking about it, that like one particular company kind of like just runs something through a processor almost that makes it like maybe upgrades the colors and shit a little bit, but not really true 4K, and
Yeah.
kind of just puts it out. And they have a machine or a company that does that for them, and that's just kind of like all their 4K.
Or trickery or whatever.
Yeah,
Could be,
Yeah.
sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I can believe it because people are gonna, they're not gonna question it. You know what I mean? They're gonna buy it, be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, it's so pretty in my collection," and not really question it.
he actually talked about that too. He's like, people will say like, oh, that he was talking about people that were talking about their films and being like, oh god, this is the best transfer I've ever seen. He's like, it's not even fucking 4K, but they're like freaking out.
So closing thoughts though on Maniac 2 or last horror film, the Severin release. You guys got anything else you want to say about it?
It's amazing.
I loved it. Great release. So glad I was able to come back and check this out. And going back to like we said about the price point, little high, but think about how much work they had to do to clean this up based on what it came from, because it was not good. So I'm sure it probably was a lot of work to clean this up the way it looks, because it does look really, really good.
It was trauma level bad.
Yeah.
Before.
I'll tell you
So I'm
something else
definitely-
real quick about the trauma disc though that I was reading somewhere, is that's actually edited. They edited a lot of footage out of that. So this is actually more of like the uncut version of the film. The trauma version that you've got, Garrett, the sequence where he's watching the film with the woman that like kills the guy and eats his heart and all that stuff.
Mhm.
There's a big part of that cut out of that
Mm.
version that they actually put into this version. So
Let me see on the runtime. The runtime on this Troma is 87. This is 87 too. So yeah, I don't know.
yeah, maybe it's a couple seconds. Who knows?
Ain't nobody going to get that trauma disc now though. If you want to see this movie,
No, don't get the Troma disc.
yeah, the Severin release, I
can
think
imagine
we can all say we highly recommend that.
For sure. All right, gang. Thank you so much for checking this out. Again, leave in the comments down below. Did you pick this up? Are you going to pick this up based on what we said? And when it comes to these kind of things, it's weird that we all agree and in a positive way too. So happy to do this review with you guys. Make sure to go check out Dead Pit over on YouTube and on Instagram. And where else are you guys? Everywhere, right?
Everywhere. Just Dead Pit. We own the name.
Yeah.
And this is Garrett at Born to Be Rad. And like always, stay